When the End SARS campaign came on stream in 2017, it coincided with the passing into law of the Anti-Torture Act of 2017. However, up till this moment, not one, I repeat, not one police officer has been brought to book for violating this act, despite the daily deployment of torture to extract information from suspects. Most of the people are ultimately found innocent. This was corroborated by a report by Amnesty International released last week. Coupled with this is the issue of the police IRT units and abduction for ransom strategy. The culture of impunity within the police structure that has been raising its ugly heads as certain officers of the IRT unit of the police have started nationwide abductions and demand for huge ransoms under the guise of fishing out internet fraudsters. According to varied accounts, this indiscriminate breaking and entry is often done without warrant, and once the attempt to extort is failed, they incriminate the victims and begin to shop for crimes to illegally pirate them for. Joining us now to take a more detailed look at this is Segun Awosanya, civil rights leader and social justice advocate convener, NSAS, Reform Police NG, president and founder of Social Intervention Advocacy Foundation. Welcome to the program. This is a sad commentary of our nation, and this is a sad violation of the rights of our people. Torture, I don't even know what to call it. When will all of this end?
Thank you very much for having me on your show again. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. So when will all of this end? When will all of this end? When will the rights of the people truly be respected? When will we have officers stop coming into your house and taking your laptop and saying you are an internet fraudster? When will they stop violating your rights?
Thank you very much. I think that question should be thrown open to the Nigerian populace because it only ends when we say enough is enough. In 2017, the International Police Science Association, IPSA, in their World International Security and Police Index, ranked Nigeria, the Nigerian police force, 127 of 127 under Inspector General of Police Idris. But years after, when we have a new IG, we're expecting, especially an IG who is exposed, who is informed, who is believed to be more educated and enlightened, to know what is applicable based on the several treaties signed by Nigeria as a republic with the global community. We realize that nothing has changed because this year's ranking has come again and Nigeria is still the worst police in the world. We currently live in a country where we are 20 times more likely to be abducted and killed by those who are meant to protect us, from harm. And this is exactly the life of an average Nigerian out there. And we are asking, what exactly are the governments doing? What exactly is delaying the facilitation of the bills that are at the legislature? What exactly is stopping the presidential order from putting declaring an emergency on what the police have become in Nigeria today? And this is where we are.
Well, Segun, the Amnesty International released a report titled Time to End Impunity, in which, from a study of 82 cases of torture and other forms of ill treatment, it concluded that the Nigeria police has not addressed the issue of torture, which was also the title of a report that Amnesty International Nigeria issued in 2016. 4 or 5 years down the line, nothing has changed. But if you look at the Anti-Torture Act of 2017, it places the onus for protesting on the right of the person, on the part of the person who has been abused. You can even seek assistance from the Human Rights Commission, and then you can get a medical report to document how you've been tortured and abused. Now, why is it that we have not had cases of persons taking up the matter and reporting torture and relying on the relevant provisions of the Anti-Torture Act and the Nigerian Constitution? Or could it be that certain persons have made the effort and they were frustrated by the system?
Thank you very much. I think it's all of the above. There is not enough awareness. And also, when you live in a society where impunity has been deemed the normal, it is always difficult for you to protest. Protesting will make you look as though you are insane. The police, since 2017, the police adopted torture as a means of extracting information. And this is not hidden. They themselves see it as they are a tool. They see it as a means of engaging the Nigerian people. And right from the moment where they are trying to prosecute something, or you are demanding your right, or you're trying to tell them something, or you're trying to ask questions from police officers, the next thing you see is that they raise their hands and they start assaulting you right there, even in public. So because of this, most people don't see the need to begin to go to court or to invite civil rights activists to come and prosecute issues that they know is so common and it has become normal. Because again, who do you precisely report to? You report police for assaulting you, or you report police for torturing you, when police themselves don't see any wrong in torture. When you go to our divisions, most of the things we have in the books are written in the law books and all is not applicable at the divisional level. Because at the divisional police level, they are still acting as though we are in 1943. They are still acting as though they are working for the colonialists who they are meant to protect from the savages, from the 99%. And so this is the situation we find ourselves as a country. We have refused to take reforms seriously. We have refused to take justice, equity, or fairness seriously, even within the police structure.
We've all seen how protests erupted in the wake of the murder of George Floyd all over the world. And this has created a huge momentum in addressing racial equality and police brutality. How can we seize the moment in Nigeria and bring these issues to the forefront and ensure actual change?
Yes, it's correct to say that protests had broken out in America and a lot of people are buying into it, they've taken ownership in it and all. But I must say, just the same way, if I ask you how many moons do we have in the solar system, your guess will be that there can be more than 20 simply because Earth has only one. But you will be wrong, because in the entire solar system, we have over 200 moons. Saturn itself has about 80 moons plus. So the same way, we cannot have the kind of protest we have in America, in Nigeria today, because we have yet to identify our common ground. Because we're still divided as a people, maybe along political rights, along religious rights, lines, along ethnic lines. And the only thing that connects us is probably our pain. But when you begin to exploit that pain to bring out the discontent in people and the need to express their dissatisfaction out there, there are politicians waiting to take action to exploit that particular situation for regime change. And that really wouldn't give you the kind of change that you want, actually, the things you're actually fighting for, which is why we're adopting another means through which we can engage government by letting them see what the law says, by letting them know what the people feel, by bridging the institutional gaps that we have and pushing for reforms in the best possible way that we can. Because right now, telling people to go to the streets to fight for one thing or the other is to worsen the situation that we have right now. America is not even perfect, even with the protest on the ground, as hijacked by the Democrats. So it's actually misrepresenting the actual pains of the black community in America. So we need to put things in context, just like the analogy of the moon that I just gave you. But we will get there. A time will come in Nigeria when Nigerians will take to the street. But my fear is when that happens, they may never go back in.
Right. You actually made some assumptions there about my interest in astrology. Thank you very much. One. Two, I never suggested anybody going out to the streets. I wanted to see how we could use that momentum. But you've answered that question. At least you've said what is not a possibility right now. Rufai?
It's good you've made him know. All right, real quickly, I want to ask you this. I'm sick and tired of this talk of reforms. I'm very sick. I'm a frustrated man. You know why? Because we have white papers everywhere. I remember last year we had the white paper on SARS, the Ojukwu report, isn't it? Yeah, we had that. And they called for some reforms. Nothing has been done. That was 2019. It's 2020 now. Nothing has been done. Now we have reports here and there every time that we, like we say, just gathers dust. So how do we push this forward? I want results. I'm sick and tired of coming on TV and talking about this over and over again. Anyway, that's what I'm paid to do. But I want results.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Results will come, but there must be strategy. We cannot use tactical solutions for strategic problems. The issue we have in Nigeria is not about the police officers themselves, per se. We have a systemic problem. In other words, we're dealing with culture. And when you're trying to change culture or influence culture, it takes a routine. It takes a particular format through which you need to build upon. You need to create a new and alternative culture that people can see that is better than what they have on ground. And this is holistic because police themselves are victims of the system that we're dealing with. So the reforms that we are talking about is not the political statement you hear from politicians each time they want people to go back in and make peace with society. The reforms, for example, I remember when we started in 2017, as of 2018, the president came out with an order to reorganize the police structure and all. And by the time they are going to give that order, they directed it to the police themselves. The police cannot be the judge in their own case. They cannot reform themselves. By the time you begin to push reform to the police, they will be removing hairdressing and moving furniture around. And by the time they do that, they will tell you they have reformed themselves. Meanwhile, nothing has changed on ground. And that's what we have been having because we don't have enough political will to drive the kind of reform we want. And what exactly do I mean by this? It is not just the emotional outburst or the expression of discontent of activism, but about advocacy, which is one of the things that Amnesty International is doing with the preparation of a report based on investigation, based on the weight of evidence, based on the body of study, that, look, this is precisely what you have on ground in this country. This is what is happening in other countries. And this is what we can do to bridge this gap and make sure that everybody benefits from the proclamation of human rights globally as universally done. And what we are doing with this is to engage the institutions because anything we put out there in terms of stopgaps. We have done it before, where we engaged IGP Idris, telling him that SARS had gone rogue and they're acting wild, they become law unto themselves and the rest. And what happened? We began to say, okay, don't wear uniform, don't do this, don't do that. We put a lot of things in place which worked for that moment. The moment IGP Idris was out of office...
Well, Segun, sorry to interrupt you. We need to take a short commercial break.
Okay.
When we return, the conversation with you will continue. Thank you. Welcome back to the morning show here on the RIS News Channel. Still with us is Segun Awosanya, civil rights leader, social justice advocate, and convener of the End SARS Reform Police Nigeria campaign. Segun, before we went on break, you were making a number of points. If you could just continue with your line of thought. And when you land, I'd like you to address this. You led a campaign against the Special Anti-Robbery Squad and the brutality of the methods that particular squad adopted. But then we also have the Intelligence Response Team, the IRT, which was established in 2015, and whose leader, I think his name is Abba Kyari, has been celebrated. But we understand that there are also issues with the Intelligence Response Team in terms of the methods adopted by that group. If you'd like to comment on the effectiveness or otherwise of the IRT, as it is otherwise known.
All right, thank you. So let me just land on my earlier points. So we put some things together in place as a stopgap, which we believe that if built upon, we're going to have a better society. But what do we have? The moment the IG changed to the new IG, what the first thing he did when he came into office was to repeal every single stopgap that was put in place that were known to be working. And he threw back every single thing that was changed. He put them back where they used to be, and the killings continued. The impunity continued. Until date, we have not had any form of reform or any form of adjustment to the system to curb the impunity. And now let me know, then I begin to wonder that why are we reverting to toxic policies just to maintain the familiar for political benefits when we will not drink poison to justify thirst? But nobody has been able to answer that question. Then I went to IRT because of the reports that we've been getting in torrential flow, IRT, STS, and the rest. I know that today in Nigeria, if your car gets stolen or missing, and you happen to pay money, because it's not free, you pay money for them to have an investigation into helping you recover your car. The moment they recover that car, you are most likely going to buy that car back from the IRT or STS for millions of naira. And this has been the practice. A lot of people cannot complain because they don't want mortal retribution to their persons. And of late, they've been frustrated across Nigeria. This is not just one thing, maybe isolation situations. We also have a situation where today, the IRT guys, they roam the streets, and which was one of the things that we stopped then, that tactical squads generally. See, the NSAS Reform Police NG hashtag, where NSAS is the objective, and Reform Police NG is the end goal, which we're still pursuing. The NSAS there is not talking about SARS alone. It's talking about all tactical teams, all the formations, all these silos that we have created to address certain problems in society, which they have now become. Right now, the SARS, the STS, the IGPS squad, and most of these people, they have already fallen short of the purpose for which they were created. And now they are working against the constitution of the country, and they have formed their own criminal enterprise. Despite the fact that in some circles, you hear some people give awards and do all these things, that's on the peripheral. That's just an illusion, an optical illusion. At the end of the day, if you look deep into what they are doing, you know that it's a criminal enterprise. We've seen several, in fact, there are too many to count, and we've written petitions about this. But when you begin to even listen or read the things that you get as responses from their leaders, you will be dismayed. How can an intelligence unit of a Nigerian police, closest to the IG of police, be operating without intelligence? You'll be wondering that before you can move out to go and arrest somebody or raid a place, you will have done an investigation. Now you arrest a couple of people simply because they were alive. Young people being at home, you said, there are too many boys here, you must be Yahoo boys. And you take all of them away, and you begin to ask their parents for millions of naira per head. Ransom. And then somebody will justify that and say, yes, let them pay first, then we'll know, we investigate where the money came from. I have never heard this kind of things before. And this is a regular thing. If you go to Abuja, if you go to Lagos, if you go to East, there are so many things happening. Now, when we're looking for people, our youth, maybe they are missing or something, we don't think of that. We start looking at policemen. We start looking at police divisions. Start looking at IRT and STS because they must have been abducted. And the next thing will be ransom. And the problem about this is this. The moment you fail to pay whatever it is that they are demanding from you, they will tell you to your face that we will indict these people, we will incriminate them, we will parade them for so crime, and we will charge them to court based on this. And you know our criminal justice system is derelict. Whatever it is that they force you at gunpoint to write as your statement will be what the court will charge you for. There are many cases we are following up on today, in court, in the prison, in Kirikiri, in maximum, in minimum, and the rest of them, where innocent souls are languishing in jail for many years, and they have not gotten justice. And they have been charged for something that they never knew anything about, simply because of this police engagement, which must change. This is one of the reasons why impunity, when you say the culture of impunity, it's not just about, if you fire the entire police force like this, and you bring in new fresh blood, these things will continue. So we have to engage the system enough to have a systemic change. That is the solution to all this problem. Not pointing fingers or changing people or reorganizing furniture in the police system. Right now, the IG responded to most of the petitions by saying, okay, now we're going to absorb the STS and the IGPX squad under a force investigation bureau and the rest of it, which is just adding unnecessary, expanding a system that is not functional. The functional aspect of the police itself, the functional unit within the police, is further shrunken, while the ones that are dysfunctional are widened. And how do you want to solve a problem with that? It seems like the IG has lost connection with the pulse on the street. He doesn't understand that the police is a service. He's beginning to overemphasize on the fact that they are a force and they're doing anything that they like.
You have a question?
No.
I just have some insights, to share and to ask him on. I want to talk about lion building.
Yeah.
And I have heard a lot of atrocious things out of lion building. I want to ask you on air, what is it about lion building?
Lion building, like every other anti-cultism units and the rest of the tactical squad units, like the one in Bagada, like the one in different places, you know, it's the same routine. The police generally have become commercialized to the point where they thrive and live on ransom. So if you hear lion building operation is nothing but a criminal enterprise that sends his men on the street to pick anything that is alive at certain points in time, at certain time of the day, bring those boys into their custody and begin to question them or accuse them of one thing or the other and demand money from them. And this had been the order of the day. I don't think a day has ever gone by that we don't get a call from people, a distress call from people who have been held in Lions building under some, under the guise of they running an investigation because they got an information that there are some boys causing trouble somewhere. And the funny thing is this: when there is actual crime or this or uproar in society or disturbance of public peace or so, you don't get to see any of these people. They will never come there until the worst is over. And then by the time they even show up, they'll be picking innocent people and demanding bribes from them. So the question is there a general instruction from the police leadership that the entire police structure now should now be so commercialized that they should be going out to abduct people and demand ransom? This is the question we need to begin to ask the IG of police and also the president of this country, who owes us the duty of care to protect the youth of our nation, to protect the future of this country. Lions building is as notorious as Bagada anti-cultism or anti-cultism units. So,
Segun, okay, you have a question for him. Although we soon go on break.
Well, we're going on a break soon, but I have to just say, I want to highlight a part of the Amnesty International report, just for the sake of our viewers, to see the gravity of what we're discussing here. There was a gentleman there named as Miracle, who was tortured horrifically and claims that 8 people starved to death while he was in police detention. 8 people. Do you know what it is to starve to death? And that he was not fed. The plan was for him to starve to death, though his fellow inmates gave him some food. There was another gentleman there who was an amateur boxer, and because of that, he claimed that the torture was targeted at his arms, so he will not be able to use them to box. And the other one, a journalist who was threatened with rape, having been beaten black and blue. Now, there was one of them who, the crime he was accused of committing, the actual perpetrators were arrested, and he still was not released until his parents came to pay. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. These are the examples in that report. But we'll take a break at this point, and we'll come back to you. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Segun Awosanya is still with us. Awosanya is a civil rights leader and social justice advocate and convener, Enters Reform Police Nigeria. Awosanya, well, Tundu had asked you a question, so now is the time to respond to that question about the Amnesty International report on impunity, police impunity in Nigeria.
Yes, sir. The Amnesty report, I must say, is commendable. And they were very fair in their reportage because they just glossed over very few cases out of thousands of cases. The man who was luckily bailed, after being detained with criminals and the rest of it and watching people die, is very lucky. Unlike somebody who was raided alongside an investigation and jailed for years of his life for doing nothing, for simply being alive in that vicinity. And when you will be shocked to realize that intelligence is a foreign language within the Nigerian police. There is no such thing as investigation. When you hear the word investigation, it doesn't exist based on from experience. What they do is to project what they want to happen, to project what they want to believe on whosoever that they have targeted. And if you cannot pay the money, you get tortured to confess to whatever it is that they have pinned on you or shopped for you, and before you know it, you are looking at jail term. There are many people who are rotting away in the Nigerian cells across board. And Lagos, for example, is one of the biggest hubs of people awaiting trial in this country. And when you look at the whole situation itself, it is very ugly. It should not be happening under a democracy. But again, if you want to prosecute the entire system and watch the trajectory and understand what exactly is going on in there, you see that we only have, how many judges do we have? How many judges who are presiding over criminal cases do you have in this country? In Lagos, for example. They are not up to 20. Let's just say 16. And these 16 people are expected to listen to and to hear cases for thousands of people. So that's why you see a simple case of wrongful arrest becomes 10-year detention, 6-year detention, 20-year case. At the end of the day, they realize that you are not guilty of that crime. Then who then pays for the time that have been stolen from you? So the entire country itself is a crime scene as it goes. And we cannot continue to call ourselves a civilization unless we engage strategically and begin to fix this. We don't tell each other enough truth. Most of these reports, like Amnesty have done, we don't see enough of it because most of the NGOs we have, they are a moral grille of the administration, and that is because of the identity politics of hate that plays in our environment, our socio-political climate. So this is one of the things that we are trying as much as possible.
Segun, I don't know whether you are fair to some of the CSOs, because I know that many of them also prepare locally reports on police brutality. But maybe I shouldn't speak for them. They will speak for themselves. But you made a statement earlier. You said that the Nigerian police, the policemen themselves, are victims.
Yeah.
And we have had, situations where policemen have also had to protest. And part of the ways of addressing that was the Police Trust Fund Act. And then when that happened, it was praised. And then later the president constituted the Board of Trustees, I believe in May, an 8-man Board of Trustees. And part of the mandate of that Board of Trustees is to implement the Police Trust Fund, to address the issue of training, to provide better funding for the police. And you yourself, you discussed that subject, during one of your appearances on this program.
Yeah.
Where are we with that Police Trust Fund? What is being done to strengthen the same policemen that you say are victims in certain respects?
Thank you, sir. That particular police reform bill that was passed into law by the president, we actually lost a year, on that because that's a 6-year term. And we have already lost a year before we finally had a board. And by the time the constitution of the board was done, the people that were put into the board were questionable individuals. They are politicians and they are people who are already part of the problem. And we cannot solve any problem with the same mindset that we used to create that problem. And that is the issue we have in Nigeria, where when you want to deal with issues of police or policing, you begin to see people exhume retired police officers, exhume people who were known not to have even achieved much when they were in the system, being brought back to preside over the situation on the new, over the process of bringing about the new. How can you bring about the new with an old mindset? And this is exactly the situation we're having with the appointment of Mr. President on that particular board. So that has been questioned, and with the questioning of the composition of that particular team, we know that we cannot expect much from whatever it is that they're going to execute. So that is still a dialogue that is still in process. While we are engaging the legislature on the police reform bill to be passed. Once that bill is passed, things becomes clearer. A lot of things that we're solving or we're engaging with tactics now becomes law. And once it becomes law, police will have no option than to make the right adjustments. But the way it is now, the operational independence of the police is still an imagination. The balkanization and institutional vandalism of the police itself is what we see. The leadership of the police are not leaders as a word. They are not even there to do anything other than to ensure they don't step on toes. And you cannot have an IG who doesn't have a security of tenure in place and expect him to do the miraculous or expect him to make a difference overnight. Because every decision he needs to make will affect one thing or the other in the political terrain. And because he knows his tenure is not secure, there are some things he definitely will not do. He will want to leave to his predecessors. Because I can tell you that there is a lot of problem within the system, and the only way out is for us to get a presidential order right now, if we want something very quickly, aside from waiting for NAS to actually have the enough political will to push out whatever it is they want. Right now, we strategically designed the police reform bill and the Police Trust Fund Act to solve the problem of financing the police in order to ensure that they are operational, and also to restructure the process through which they police Nigeria today by democratizing the entire system. But a lot of people are afraid of the change that will bring. And because of that, they are delaying things, they are dragging their feet, they are tacit about it, and they are making things worse for Nigerians.
I've got two questions for you. I first said people on that board were of questionable character. What do you mean by that? What would you have been your ideal criteria for people to be on that board? You talked about the old. Somebody will have thought that the old will bring some level of experience, you know, to bear there. That's one question. Second question, I've not heard in all of this conversation, when you talk about culture change, you talk about the police college. I saw a documentary many years ago about the very horrid conditions in Nigerian Police College, Ikeja, and some other parts like that. Because when you're coming into the police force for the first time, your first culture touch point will be the police college. Do you seek reforms in the police college, training college? Do you seek reforms across board when they start to get new intakes into the police force? Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah, thank you. I've addressed that severally on this, each time I come to this channel, that the reform we're looking at is holistic, is a universal reform, which touches every single aspect of the Nigerian police, as it were. We have been involved, at least in the past 6 years now, in the reformation or in the direct engagement of the police college and also the police academy. I am certain that at some point you realize that the police academy itself, they had no graduation date, they have no POP date, they had no provision for anything, their names were not in the IPPIS system. And then there were so many gaps. And those people, they were not even feeding them, they were like prisoners in the police academy. I'm not even talking about the police college now, which is still, you know, a lower cadre. This is like the university of the police. Until we engaged the system, until we facilitated certain things before they finally inculcated them, put them into on board, and then started giving them what is due to them. So I keep saying that the change definitely will not come from within the police. It will come from outside. It will come from the people. It will come from where power actually resides. If we genuinely follow up what is going on and then monitor the system enough to have the kind of change that we deserve. Because as it were, through advocacy, we have been able to look at what we have as a country holistically, to see how we have done things, to see how we can do things, and to also look at, to interrelate this with what we expect, the kind of change we expect. We cannot expect somebody who is a politician, who is still going towards running for election in 2023 on the board of Police Trust Fund. Our money will be in danger. And the police themselves say is that, look, if we have people who are not so credible or not so committed to the police plight, you know, in the such system, there's no way that they can expect any change from it. As I speak to you today, two police officers of the same rank are not earning the same salary.
How?
Because there are several deductions that they cannot even explain themselves that cause disparity within or disproportionate salaries within the system. And when you begin to talk about training of police, if you look at the training, it has nothing to do with human rights. And human rights courses that have been added to their courses are optional. It's optional. So it's not something that you will fail and they will tell you you cannot pass, go beyond this. You will go forward because they say, what is human rights? And because, again, so the training has not really changed. A lot of things have not changed. Syllabus have not changed. If you are a CP, for example, and you are going higher than that, every single training you go for is the same training you have at CP level. So why exactly are you going for training? So most of the internal trainings that you see, they are actually punitive. No police officer is looking forward to go for training because they know that when they go there, what is the essence of a training that you go with buckets, we go with mattress, you go with your own pillow, you go with your own slippers and everything into a forest, you know, to go and have a course. And it was cited that way because the people who are putting those policies in place that time want to use that opportunity to develop their own hometown and their own environment. So everything has been politicized within that structure. And that's why we call it a balkanized system. In other words, was not designed, it wasn't broken, it wasn't designed to work or to serve anyone other than the interests of those who are in control. So which is one of the reasons why we're very particular and we're very finicky about the nature and the kind of character that they are putting to administrate or to execute the policies that we have painstakingly facilitated with the legislature. The police reform bill and the police trust fund bill, they are executive bills. They are not bills that should be championed by citizens. That's bills that the presidency themselves should have sponsored. But they did not. They left it for the citizens to do. And eventually we got it done You passed it into law, and then you want to destroy the whole thing by putting your own people who are next to political parties into the whole structure to ruin everything that we have worked for. We're not...
Segun, let's talk about another practice that I think we're all complicit in, and that's the practice of parading suspects. Because we all sit in front of our TV and watch this travesty, which offends the presumption of innocence. Let's talk about that briefly before we go.
All right. It's actually a crime in Nigeria. At least NBC have discussed this several times, that it is you are innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. Until today, police use that as a threat to make you pay ransom for your own children whose sin is simply being a Nigerian and being alive as at the time when they are being raided. And so when this happens, and you refuse to pay bail or you refuse to pay ransom, they parade your children, and the media still come there to televise this and publicize this, and nothing happens afterwards. I believe that lawyers in our community, the NBA and the other institutions we have in the country should rise up to this occasion. We cannot just leave it for certain people. You know, it's not just about us talking about it. We need to begin to sue the Nigerian police. If they start bleeding of funds, if the judicial system is engaged enough for it to give justice to the people, people should be answerable to these crimes. Because it's also a crime for you to breach all the treaties that Nigeria have signed with the international community and then expect us not to be isolated from the rest of the world. That's why we are a pariah to the entire globe when it comes to policing. They don't recognize our police system because we don't respect human rights. And it is very sad. And it continues to happen. As at yesterday, they still paraded people, even without taking them to court, even without deeming them guilty, knowing fully well that they will await trial for the next 20 years of their lives. This should stop. And this should be condemned by every well-meaning citizen in this country.
Well, thank you very much, Segun Awosanya, for joining us this morning on The Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.